Hello, everyone, and welcome to my new show, Out of Nowhere. The new show's been going about 3 months. I've been doing radio for about 10 years. I'm very excited to have a really good guest on my show today. His name is Daryl Denton. Daryl grew up in Tennessee, was elected alderman, commissioner at the H team. Um, was a team on. He was the mayor of the town. He's a Christian and has a Native American blood. He's very spiritual. Daryl was raised mostly in the countryside, and he has his own his first encounter. He'll tell us more in a few minutes. Can we please welcome Daryl to the show? Hello there.
Thank you for having me on. I'm honored to be here. I appreciate the audience being there to watch us, and good evening to everyone.
Thank you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, growing up and
Well, like I said, pretty much grew up in the countryside. I stayed on my grandfather's farm mostly, both grandfathers and grandmothers, and pretty much did a lot of farming work and anything to do with the farm I was involved in, and always hunted and fished in the areas. So I was familiar with the woods before my first sighting.
very exciting. Tell us about you, about where you go and what you do in the LBL
Well,
place.
LBL is mainly where we research now, and my research team consists of Ron Moorhead, Martin Groves, and Barton Nunley. Um, Barton has his own show on now. He stays busy, so it's more Ron Moorhead and Martin Groves than him. But he's still a part of the team. We've been researching there strictly about 7 years on Dogman. I was into Bigfoot for nearly 30 years, but I just got to the point where I'm still interested in it, but my main focus is on Dogman, and that's what we're all there for. Of course, Martin Groves had his tremendous story there back in '93, his encounter when he was almost killed by a Dogman and what we believe to be either two rogue Bigfoot or two Gugway. Um, it's been quite a few years. Matter of fact, this will be the 32nd anniversary, I believe, this October, this April. This coming April next year.
Tell us a little bit about your encounter. Was it 1992?
My first encounter was with Bigfoot on my grandfather's farm, and most everybody has heard my story, but I won't go into every detail, but I'll tell you about it. I was out there hunting on my grandfather's farm with three of my friends. Cody, Jason, and Scott. We've been hunting there for 5 years or longer. My granddad had a real big farm, rural area, Cannon County, Tennessee. We took a camper up there every year, pulled behind camper behind my truck, and they followed behind with a trailer with our four-wheelers or ATVs on it. We would stay a whole week of muzzleloader, which is black powder season there. That opens up every year a week before regular rifle season. And I'd hunted there for years and years, but I'd never been as deep in as I went that particular trip. And all my buddies, we got up there the day before season opened, and they all went to their areas and either carried their stand, and we also had tree stands built where you get up to hunt for deer with. And my grandfather had told me the best place to get a trophy deer was, he pointed to a hill way off in the distance, and he said, I would suggest you go there if that's what you're looking for. And it was about a 45-minute to an hour walk, and I went down behind my grandfather's house, crossed a sage grass field, and crossed a barbed wire fence, and went over to the third hill. Very, very steep terrain, about 45-degree angle. All those hills are. When I got to the last hill, I found a tree next to a creek. I knew I was in the right area. That was the actual area my grandfather had grown up in, had a house there. There was an old grist mill, what was left of it there. And I could tell by the big stones to the left that looked like there had been one there. I think his family used it as that when he was a small boy. And at that time, he was 92 years old, born in 1900. So his family had lived there way before he was born, and kind of inherited down through the years. But anyway, I set my stand up. It was a climbing stand put around a tree on the left side of the creek, and climbed up in the tree and my stand and got it, made sure it was gripping good on the tree for the next day, and sawed off a few limbs and came down and left the stand, went across the creek. The creek was maybe 10 or 12 foot wide. There was a clearing right there on the other side of the creek in the woods, and I had a drag rag, which you put, it's like a elastic strap with a piece of cloth on it that you put
Yeah.
scent, and you go into the woods and it kind of covers up your scent. Plus, the lure's a deer, and I hung it up on a limb on the other side. It was about 8 foot off the ground, and let it go, and just let it kind of air down through the hollow there while I was gone. Ready for the next morning, I headed back to the camp and got to my grandfather's house and went to the camper and told my granddad, "Wake me up when you get up in the morning." And he did. Got up that next morning, headed that way. Went down behind my grandfather's house to his gate across the sage grass field and across the barbed wire fence that was about 7 foot tall. And as I was going through the leaves up the side of the hill, I heard something walking to my left, and kind of startled me because I shined my flashlight in that area and didn't see anything, but it sounded like a bipedal. It sounded like a human walking, but it would stop, and when I'd stop, and I shined the light a few times and never did see what it was. I was a little bit nervous, thinking somebody was hunting in my area. I knew my grandfather wouldn't allow that. I knew it wasn't any of my friends, because we had a large enough area. We were all in different directions, and I went on about my business and climbed the hill. And time I got to the top of the third hill, I was going down around to the creek where I could find my tree stand. I wasn't familiar with that area, and I heard it walking on top of the hill. But I just come down, and it was pretty loud, and I shined my light again up toward the top and didn't see anything. And when I would walk, it would walk, and when I'd stop, it would stop. And I was a little nervous about it, but I kind of played it off as maybe, a cow or something had got in there. Maybe that's what I was hearing. And
Yeah.
even though there was no livestock in that particular area, it might have gotten in the area. So I hurriedly got up to my tree stand, got it set up, and leaned back and hung all my stuff behind me on a couple of tree limbs, my binoculars and my lunch, and pulled my gun and had it ready, and had a little bar that pulled up in front of me on my tree stand, and it was a camo that fell out, and it covered my feet and everything below my neck, and laid my gun against that bar, and I was set up and ready to go. And I didn't hear any more of the sounds to the left, but as daylight come up, I looked to the left, and there was a large cane thicket to the left of me on the creek bank that went a good distance down. And cane is looks like a bamboo looking stuff, and it grows 12 to 15 foot tall on the river banks and the creek banks. And it was real thick, and it was hard for anything to get through there, but it covers an area very well. And it was a foggy morning, and I watched the fog rise across the creek, and when it cleared up, that morning, it was probably around 8, a little after 8, I started hearing something to the left, and it was 3 deer came out of that cane area, and they crossed the creek and went up to the other side, and was a game trail on the other side of the creek, and they walked down the game trail, and they went kind of toward the drag rag, but they didn't sniff it. They kind of were milling around and eating acorns on the ground. It was a lot of acorns that year, just like deer normally do. And I watched them for 15 or 20 minutes, and then I heard something coming over in the cane thicket area. I heard something moving over in there, and I'm thinking automatically it's a large buck deer, but on top of these deer were all staring that direction, especially the doe, the lead deer, the bigger one, was just froze looking in that area with her head not moving and her ears up. All 3 deer were just looking straight in that area. And she took her right paw and raised it and kind of tried to stomp 2 or 3 times with it like she was trying to get something to move. And then she raised her nose and made a real loud blowing noise like deer do. Kind of sounds like someone sneezing, but a lot louder. And they were staring in that area, just frozen, watching whatever they were watching. I couldn't see it. I could only see they were looking at the movement over in that area. And Then about that time, they took off to the right and ran right in front of me as fast as they could run, like somebody had shot at them or something. And I knew that wasn't normal. But I started thinking, well, this must be a big buck, a big, huge male deer.
Mm.
And then I seen the cane start moving. The top of it was swaying as it was coming from the back to the front. It was so thick that a human couldn't get through there, I didn't think. But I thought it was some kind of big buck deer coming through there. And about that time, this creature steps out, and I'd never seen anything like that. And it takes one step and leaps the creek and lands on the other side on the game trail, and it walks back down. I'm at a 45-degree angle. I'm kind of overlooking the creek. I'm straight
Yeah.
up on a tree, and it walks down the game trail, and it stops and looks right at me. It knew exactly where I was at, and it looks at me, and it looks like it's really angry, super angry. Its mouth to the right side was kind of contortioned, and it was just staring at me. Then it started showing me its teeth, and I'd never seen anything like this. And can't say that I didn't believe that Bigfoot didn't exist, but I'd never thought they were in my area if they did exist. But then it walks over to the right of that game trail, and it reaches up and grabs that drag rag, pulls it down and smells of it, and it just rips the whole tree limb out of the tree, throws it on the ground. And this, of course, wasn't a massive limb. It was probably 3 or 4 inches at the base where it met the tree, but it was still pretty powerful the way it did it. And then it walks right back and staring at me again. Looks like it's really mad at me. And by this time, I was having I don't scare very easy, and I normally wouldn't get scared of anything. But at that point, I was having a hard time even breathing. I didn't know what I was looking at. And I had my hand on my trigger on my 50 caliber black powder rifle, but I didn't know if one bullet would take this thing down or not. And I was trying to debate on what to do. Then it growled at me, a real unbelievable growl. Never heard one since like it. And I'm looking at it thinking, well, this thing's going to come across this creek and just jerk me out of this tree. And it just kept staring at me like it was really mad. And then it let out this scream like yell-like, and it was the loudest. I never heard a scream like that since. Just long yell scream like it was really mad. And I'm thinking, well, this is it. It's coming across this creek. And then it just all of a sudden, for no reason, just turns and walks away. And it stops and turns and looked back at me one time as it's walking. And I watched it walk off into the hardwoods. And by that time, I wasn't going to take 10 or 15 minutes to get down the tree stand. So I lowered the bar in front of me that was around me that I had my gun against, and I jumped. I was up 25, 28 feet and landed in the leaves and slid all the way down that steep hillside into the creek with my gun above my head. And I just jumped up, ran up out of the creek, and ran back as fast as I could run. And I was pretty much out of breath time I got to the second hill, and I looked back and it was on top of the hill looking at me, or one just like it. It may not have been the same one, but it was up there looking at me. And that just gave me more adrenaline to go. And I ran all the way back to my grandfather's house and went in the back door and locked the back door and went in and sat down on the floor across from him in the corner next to an old big fire stove, pot-bellied stove we call them. And
yeah,
he said, "What's wrong, boy?" And I couldn't even talk. I was so out of breath. And he said, "Boy, what's wrong?" And I said, I just couldn't talk. I was completely out of breath. And I'd get up, go look out the window and the door, make sure this thing wasn't coming. And finally come down and sit down again. He goes, "You look like you've seen a ghost." And finally, by that time, I could talk a little bit. I said, "Well, I've seen a monster in the woods." He said, "A monster?" He said, "I've lived here all my life. There ain't no monsters in the woods." And I said, "Well, what I seen was a monster." He said, "What it looked like?" And I told him, and he looked at me and he said, "Oh, you seen a wood booger?" I said, "A wood booger?" I said, "I've never heard of a wood booger, and you've never told me about one." He goes, "Well, I didn't want you to be scared to go in the woods and hunt and camp and everything else." So he said, "They've been around here as long as I can remember all my life, and I've seen 4 of them. And they'll be staring at me sometimes when I'm working in the field, but they They don't bother you. They're territorial. They don't like you in their area. You're probably in one of them's area. And I said, well, I'd never heard of it. You never told me about it. I said, whatever it was, I don't care to see one again. So he said,
How
in
big?
the wintertime, they come and take chickens out of the chicken house and they'll leave a little pile of sticks and rocks like they're paying
Oh
for.
God.
So that was my first encounter with what I learned was a type 2 Bigfoot called the woodbugger.
How big would you think it was then?
He was about 8 foot tall. I'm only judging that by the branch that he ripped out of the tree because I'm 6'5", and when I raise my arm all the way up to the top, it's a little bit over 8 foot, and that's where I tied the drag rag off to that limb, and his head was at that limb or a little bit above it. He was 8 foot or maybe 8'1" or 8'2", but he was a little taller than the limb, real close to the height of the limb. So that was what I'm guessing was about his height. Yeah.
And you're saying it was very big. You know, what weight would you say it was then?
I've had people ask me that over the years many times. I've done a lot of these over the years, and everybody is always interested in my first encounter, like they should be, because it was the one that changed my life. But it was, I'm guessing, we kind of measured that out. Barton Nunley and Ron Moore had an idea what we thought by proportion of size, and they've got a little way that we come up with. I'm thinking it was 800 pounds or a little better.
Good golly. That's big.
Well, it had a massive chest and upper torso, and its head and its neck. Uh, uh, it was really heavy. The legs were huge. The waist, when it got to its knees, below its knees, the legs weren't that big. As a matter of fact, they probably weren't any bigger than mine from the knee down. But and it was solid black. The right side of his mouth was kind of out of contortion. It was kind of twisted up to the right. I don't know how to explain it, really. I've never quite. So I've seen many creatures since then. I've never seen another woodbugger, and I've never seen one with a mouth like that. But it had regular square teeth, and the face looked like black leather. It had hair all around it and below its eyes.
Hmm.
The head was not a cone-shaped head. It was more of a human-shaped head. It's solid black.
I know when you talk about these, what's the difference between forest people and Bigfoot?
I get asked that a lot. My second occurrence, and I wasn't looking for any of these creatures, but my second occurrence was about 7 years. I didn't go into the woods for 7 years.
Oh,
I didn't deer hunt anymore after that. It pretty much frightened me pretty bad. I'd still hunt, but I'd hunt out of my truck out of a field. But not as much as I once did, and I don't hunt at all now. But the second occurrence that I had was by pure accident. I was fishing, and those creatures were completely different than this one. All the studying I've done, they seem to be more like the type 2 or type 3 Bigfoot, which is more similar to what we know here in the U.S., and you may know too, is the Patty type, which is based on Patterson Gimblin's film in 1968 or 66, whatever year that was. But it looked more like that one, the second one that I've seen. And the forest people are, this is my personal opinion. I don't claim to be an expert at anything. I can only say what I've learned from my own experiences and my own encounters. But the forest people are all friendly. They form huge X's, the shape of an X. They'll break trees, full growing trees, not dead trees. They'll break them at the base and they'll form X's in the forest. Or they'll even take deadfalls and make X's in the forest against other trees. They'll even make small ones on trails, and that's the marker of the forest people. And they're very friendly. They're non-aggressive. They're very curious. They're elusive, and they seem to know people's intentions and thoughts. And if they think that you're anything to harm them, you probably won't ever see one, or they'll try to run you off. but they're not an aggressive type. The other Bigfoot that I've run into over the years seem to be different. Matter of fact, I think the real Bigfoot is the forest people. I think the other one is the Sasquatch, as we call it, or a Bigfoot. And they are a little different. Some of those are aggressive. Most all of them are, unless you get to know them pretty well. And they've got to take you in and welcome you. You don't actually welcome them. They will find you. You don't go out and find them.
Right. There's a question from Sober here. Hi, Daryl. Could you please tell me if you or Martin Groves have seen anything similar to what you saw outside the car in LBL?
The last creature we seen like that was, of course, in Martin's #2 book. The whole second half was our encounter, Beast Between the Rivers. Our documentary just finished. Our documentary's out. I think it's part 2 or 3 now, about our encounter in the LBL, and that's the only time I've ever seen that creature. The only time Martin has ever seen one like that. I've seen 3 dogmen. I've never seen anything like that. It went from a blue type mist, to a silver colored creature with actually light on each tip of its fur. The eyes were like small flashlights. The head was about half the size of our truck windshield. It was about 8 foot long. I could not see its feet. It was down in the grass and brush. It was had hair around its neck like a lion. It looked like it was wanting to it was staring right at me, probably 5 to 7 feet from me. It could have killed me if it wanted to. It did make both of us sick. Martin was a lot sicker than I was, but it also was transparent at the same time. It's very hard for people to understand what we've seen because, like I said, it's almost cartoonish, but it was definitely real. You could see it walking around the entire. It walked around us and went through a field, went up a hillside, and you could hear it breaking limbs and branches going up the hillside. No, I've never seen another one like that. That's the only one that he and I've ever seen like that. Martin has seen a few more dog men than I have, but he and I have witnessed 2 together. The other 2, nothing like that one. The other 2 look more flesh and blood. That one, I couldn't tell you what it was. It was a dog man type creature, but I've never witnessed anything like that.
Right. And I know, I think Steph's asked a question to Daryl. Do you think we are chosen sometimes to see Bigfoot?
100%. I think there's a certain natural ability to some people. For some reason, I'm one of those. I don't know if it has anything to do with the Native American blood I have or just my abilities. I've always had abilities to feel and see things that some other people don't. I don't know. My grandmother told me when I was little that I had that ability and that I would, if I'd practiced it, I would be better at it. But I never knew how to practice it and never knew. It just came naturally. And when you go in and see these creatures, when you're trying to find them, they know they can read they can read you. They know that you're in there for a good reason. I don't think normal people that have bad intentions normally see them because they pick up on your abilities of your thought train. Now, I haven't personally mind spoke with one of them. I have had them try to mind speak with me, and I was always kind of fearful to allow them to do that because I was afraid it might not be a good one. All these creatures aren't good. I'm not saying they're going to kill you, but I will say that some of them are not favorable to have you in their area, and they will harm you if you don't leave. So it sometimes takes a while to realize what type creature you're around, and of course, you want to be more around the forest people, in my opinion. I had better luck with those than any. But I do think they have an ability to read people, and there are certain people who see them and certain people that don't. I know they go interdimensional. So, no doubt about that. But there are, Ron Moorhead has the best book on the market about that. It's called Quantum. If you want to read a book that'll make you understand the interdimensional and what some people call cloaking of that creature. Get that book called Quantum from Ron Moorhead and read it. I've read it 3 times. Every time I read it, I learn a little more. But it will break down how these creatures transfer their energy into a different state. And they have a lot faster, higher energy than we do some way. I do believe they can transfer themselves into invisible or interdimensional.
I've just got Paul with me now, Paul Sinclair with me.
How you
Paul,
doing,
good
Daryl?
to see you. Good to see you, Paul.
Yeah, good. Well, I looked downstairs. I'm not going to break into the show. That wouldn't be fair, but I was listening.
Hey, it's great to see you, Paul. I was just on Paul's show a couple of maybe a month or 2 ago, and enjoyed being on there. And super guy. I just think the world of Paul.
Yeah, excellent. I'm leave you two to it. I'm just going to listen. I'm going to sit here and observe. It's great.
I've got a question from Alex. Daryl, apart from Sasquatch and Dogman, have you witnessed any of the strange activity or creatures in the forest?
I've never personally seen anything but Dogman and Bigfoot. I've not seen little people, or I have seen what I believe to be a shadow person, but I'm not 100% positive on that. I've never seen an alien. The main 2 things that I've seen has been Dogman or dog creature and Bigfoot or Sasquatch or forest people. And I've seen a lot of those numerous times, the same ones. I do believe that we did see a couple of creatures in the LBL just this last March that I've never seen before. It's my very first time seeing one of those. And one of those was what I've heard called as a rake or a crawler. It's a long, human-looking thing with long limbs and very strange. It ran up a huge tree, and we watched it go up the tree. And I also seen a creature there in the LBL the night before that looked like a bear, but it had a kangaroo-type head. Same body like a bear, but a kangaroo-type head, and smaller feet for the front 2 legs. I've never seen anything like that before. So besides that, the only thing else I've witnessed in the forest would definitely be Bigfoot or Dogman type creature.
Tell us about, I think it was 2020, about a ball of light, what changed into something else.
2020 was Cheatham County, Tennessee. Me and one of my research partners, I have Derry Yarbrough, who's passed now, Billy Howell, who I still do a little researching with. Billy still frequents that area regularly with Chester. And that area is just absolutely loaded with Bigfoot and Dogman. And it's a very active area. That particular night we had been in there. We friended that Bigfoot family, and that wasn't forest people. That was a Bigfoot type family. Not as friendly. The female and the juvenile were the friendliest too. The males were not friendly. That we had been in there, I don't know, for probably just about every Friday and Saturday night, sometimes Thursday and Sunday too, for probably over a year. We were in there every time we had a chance, and we'd stay in there to see these creatures at the gifting area. And that particular night, I was on the top of a hill, a little ridge. It was pretty much a hill. I was behind a large tree, sitting in a camping chair behind a tree. Billy Howell was down the hill, probably 50 yards from me. He could see me and I could see him. We were behind those trees watching the creatures come into the gifting area at night, and we would hear a lot of tree knocks, and we'd even watch coyotes run a deer down there in that area, and Bigfoot go down and get the deer. Billy had that on FLIR. I think he still has it. But this particular night, though, it was a real quiet night, and I seen what looked like straight ahead of me, probably 100 yards from me in the woods. I seen a little ball of light and it was coming down a hill, and it was about the size of a light bulb,
Then that goes
and it
away.
came all the way down the hill, walking toward me. This little light bulb looking thing on the ground, and it went through a ravine, and I didn't see it. Then it came up out of the ravine, and this thing was walking right toward me. It walked all the way to me, and the closer it got, I didn't know what it was. It looked like a small ball of light on the ground, and I pulled out, I had a 45. I didn't know what it was, and I pulled it out, and it was a good 2 or 3 foot from me. Billy was to the left, and he had a big spotlight and shined it on it. And when it did, this thing turned into an opossum. It went from a light bulb looking thing to an opossum. It opened its mouth and hissed at me and turned around and went back the same way it came as natural form of opossum. And then within 30 minutes from there, these 2 huge orbs about the size of beach balls came down and from the same area that we had seen that come from. And they hovered about a foot off the ground. And we watched them for probably a good 30 minutes as they went down the side of the hill. And that was the same night that we both got zapped. I got hit by something and got real sick feeling, and my legs were tingly, had a stomach and headache. And right behind us, maybe 100 yards back, is the people that had called us down there, friends of ours who had problems with these creatures stealing their melons and doing stuff. That was the reason we were down there to begin with. She called and said they were at the house, so we went back to the house, and all of our alarms on my truck, his truck, and the gentleman who lived there were going off. These creatures had went around us and went to the house and had somehow set the alarms off in the truck. And he and I both were, I was really sick that night. It took me a while to get over it. And then the next week is when we were back there, when all the small orbs, about the size of a softball, we were in a ground blind, like a deer blind, plastic ground blind, because it was raining outside. And these things were flying all around us everywhere. And there were 7 of them. And after they flew around us for so long, we got kind of strange feeling, and we decided to leave.
Do you think they were interdimensional, these balls of light?
Well, since then, I've learned a whole lot about those, and because I've done a lot of studying on them, and talking with Ron Moorhead and Martin Groves and Martin Nunley, we think it's how they transfer themselves into an energy that causes them to form like an orb and float around and move. I've actually had a picture sent to me from an orb with actually a face of a Bigfoot in it. And I don't know if that's a coincidence or it's actually the face, but I think it does. I think it has something to do with those creatures and maybe other creatures. I think all this is connected when it comes together. I mean, as far as Bigfoot, alien, parent, I think all of it has to be connected some way.
Yeah, I know, because Rebecca's just been asking, what's the theory on the connection between Bigfoot and UFOs?
You know, I've never had an UFO experience, and I kind of wish I had, because I get asked that a lot, but I haven't. I've never seen an alien, and I've never had a UFO experience of any type. So there's so many credible people that state that these creatures have been seen around spaceships. They'll see them after a spaceship's been spotted. You know, I've even heard people that say they've been abducted, you know, have seen one on a spaceship. My close friend Jennifer Appleton, who has been abducted, did see a Bigfoot creature on a spaceship. And, you know, Robin Haynes, very close with, states the same thing, that there are different types. And I don't know if the types we see here all the time are from the spaceship, but I don't think they are. I think it's a different type. Maybe not. I don't really have the answer to that, but I think they could possibly be connected, yes.
Go on.
So, Daryl, why do you think that we're seeing more, or we're getting lots more reports of Dogman and Bigfoot to what we used to do? Do you think it's because there's more of them, or because people like you, Bob, myself, people in chat are starting to talk about it more. Is that the reason, or is there simply more of them because we're encroaching on their environment?
Very good question. I think there's more of them now than there ever was.
Okay.
And I do think that, I heard somebody say not long ago, and I won't quote this as he said it, but I believe it was Dr. Jeff Meldrum at a conference. It might not have been him, but I believe it was. And if it wasn't, I apologize. But I've heard the statement there might be 4,000 Bigfoot in the U.S. And I literally started laughing because I think there might be 4,000 in Middle Tennessee where I've researched. So I don't understand. I've heard people say the veil is closing. I've heard people say the veil is opening. I don't know what the veil's doing, but there are definitely more of these creatures than there were when I started. The dog man, I didn't even know what a dog man was until Martin Groves told me about one in '93. And I really didn't hear about many of them until after he told me. And in the last 5 or 6 years, you hear about dog man as much as you do Bigfoot. I think there's more people out looking for them. There's more people in the woods. There's more research. There's more groups. When I started and had my first encounter, Martin Groves and I couldn't talk to anybody. There were no podcasts. There were no radio shows. There were no groups. Nobody had anything like that. You had to pretty much be quiet because people thought you were crazy. So you didn't go around talking about, seeing a Bigfoot or a dog man. But more people are in the woods. There's more teams that get out and look for Bigfoot. There's more people that are more cautious too of these creatures. I mean, dogman and Bigfoot. And I don't think people are quite as fearful as they once were. They don't mind telling people, "Hey, I've seen some kind of creature," and they don't feel like they're going to be shunned upon or embarrassed by telling people like they once did either, because it's become more commonplace.
Thank you.
Very nice indeed. Question from Melvin. Daryl, is it possible that Bigfoot hangs around your property for some time and you could leave them food? Is it possible they would get used to you and become friendly towards you in time?
I think you have to be very careful when you're gifting.
You could end up feeding. Don't feed it.
Gifting is what I call that. When I started doing it myself on the river, I never heard the term gifting, and that was in 1999 when I started doing that on the Cumberland River with the Forrest family that I met, and I was very close to them for about 4 years. And gifting, you can, if you over gift, I can see that some of them would probably think that you need to bring them food every day, and they would become more independent and might get angry if you didn't. It depends on the.
He's just lost signal. I'll be back.
Yeah, I'll be back. Yeah.
What I'm saying is, it's like feeding a bear.
Oh God, yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what I'd ask.
Somebody tried to call me. I apologize. I think that gifting, you have to be very careful gifting. I would, if somebody wants to gift and be friends with these creatures, you want to be very easy and not take them something every day. Maybe I would suggest not just food, some type of gift. They love light sticks. They love they like food, but they're very particular. The elder will come in and test the food before the other clan eats it, and that may take a day or two, sometimes longer. But I would start off by a small gift, maybe some acorns or nuts or something like that with a shell. And maybe their favorite food is cantaloupe. So their favorite food is cantaloupe. But you don't want to take them 30 cantaloupes. You might take them one, and don't take them another one for maybe a week, because you don't want them to become self-dependent on thinking you're going to be feeding them all the time. Because some of them they're just like people. They have the same type of they're all different. They have, some of them's personalities different than they are people. But there's some of them's personality is going to be different than the other one. Some might get a little angry because he didn't get anything, and then somebody else got something. So if you're going to do that, I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but do it limited and keep it limited, and maybe switch up. They love a whole loaf of bread. Take the whole loaf with the wrapper and the tie string on it, the little wire tie on it, and leave it, and they'll eat all the bread. They'll bring the loaf, they'll bring the wrapper and the tie back and leave it for you and refill it. So, but their favorite food is cantaloupe. They love bread products. They love jelly-filled donuts. It's one of their favorites. But you got to put them on a clean dish. They won't eat it off the ground. So they don't like. They're just like they're funny about what they eat too, and they do like cooked bacon. They love it. A lot of stuff. I've tried about every food you could think of, and maybe some are different than others. But they won't eat a banana, no matter what you do with it. They're very particular on what they eat, and just don't overdo it. Maybe leave them a gift instead of a food. Maybe a little toy car or truck, or I left mine whistles, the ones on the river, and I realized how intelligent they were with those because I could hear them blowing them all over the entire woods. When I came in, they started blowing whistles, and then they wouldn't blow them. They let me know that where they were at. But you got to be careful with that too. The wrong person may hear the whistle.
Right, a question from Alex here. Daryl, are they capable of vocalizing in a way of a human would understand?
I'm sorry, you broke up on me there. I apologize. I couldn't understand what you said. Losing you.
Yeah. You're back.
Yeah, I lost you for a minute there. I apologize.
You hear us, Daryl?
Just wait. Right.
Are we back?
It's okay. Daryl, this is from Alex. Are you capable of vocalizing in a way a human would understand?
Oh yeah, they understand. Well, the ones that I knew, they had their own language. They understood the English language, and they understood American Native language. And I have some Indian blood in me, and I know some Indian American Native words, and they understood those. I felt like they did. They did it, but it took me over almost 4 years on the river. I only got 2 words out of the ones I was very close to. But they are capable. Sorry, I've lost you again.
Yeah. No, we're back again anyway. Another question from Sober Carper. Due to a vast amount of different creatures being seen, do you think that these are being created or summoned by someone or something, as there seems to be a lot of different creatures nowadays?
I think that that's a possibility. I wouldn't put anything past the governments. I almost find it hard to believe that what Martin Groves and I seen in the LBL, the dog man that we seen in October of 22 was even, it had to be engineered by something because I can't imagine anything like that being born. It was unreal. So, yeah, I do think that it's a very good possibility that the government had stepped in and tried to make some of these creatures.
Tell us about the bulls that were mutilated.
I never seen those particular bulls. Martin was on patrol at that time. That was during the time when the two or three row Bigfoot attacked my farm. That lasted about 2.5 months in 2020. I know what I heard and what Martin told me that was not very far from where I lived. I understood that they were pretty much like some of the other things I've heard about the bulls and fields or cattle mutilation, where they've been incisions like a laser and different parts have been removed. That wasn't very far from the area that I was being attacked by, and I guess that was June. Let's see, that was June and July, I guess, or of June, July, and part of August of 22. I mean, of 2020. I didn't actually see them personally, but at what Martin told me, it was pretty similar to what we've heard of before.
What did Martin think had done it then, Daryl?
He was pretty, he didn't really understand it himself, because, we hadn't actually had anything like that that I'm ever aware of in our area. I've heard of it out west in certain areas of them finding cattle mutilations, but I'm not aware of any cattle mutilations that we had before in the Tennessee area that I lived in. So it was very strange. I really don't know what it was, but it happened. I just don't really know what caused it or what did it. But very strange, I thought, for that to happen in our area.
Why do you think the life between the lakes is so special place?
Land between the lakes. Isn't it?
Yeah, land between the lakes.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, what's so special about the land between the lakes? Why is it so special?
Well, I can only give you my idea. I think there's a lot of. I think that there was a dog man there before Land Between the Lakes. Back in the time when that was go back to the 1700s. That was the call Between the Rivers, and there's even stories from Native Americans and early settlers of dogman type creatures attacking farms and killing livestock and things. I think they actually called him a werewolf, is what they called him. But I've not read the story, but I've heard about it. Elijah Henderson is very aware of it, and he knows more about it than I do. Super good friend of mine. But there's a lot of old time history from that area. And then you also have, like Joe and Jesse said, it's almost Joe and Jesse from Hellbent Holler, very close friends of mine also. They research that area regularly. It's a dark and bloody ground because people were forced out of their homes and out of their farms. They didn't want to leave. And the Tennessee Valley Authority, when they formed the rivers in the 60s, they formed the rivers together to form Kentucky Lake, which is what Land Between the Lakes is. It's where the Lake Barkley, which is a common river from Cheatham Dam down, meets Kentucky, and it's Kentucky Lake and the Tennessee River, and forms a massive lake, and that's why it's called Land Between the Lakes. But those people were forced out, and there's hundreds of cemeteries in the LBL still existing today. You can go in the middle of nowhere and run into a cemetery. Some of those are Revolutionary War cemeteries. So there's some really old cemeteries there. Plus, you can also, what I've understood, there's at least, there's hundreds of them that were covered with water. And I don't know that has anything to do with all the stuff that we hear about at Land Between the Lakes. I do think the dogman creature was there before that happened. Maybe a different one now, or more of them now than there was, and I quite frankly think there is. But that has a whole lot to do with it. That area has always had a strong tradition and history of the dogman creature being there.
But there has been a lot of missing people as well, haven't there?
Well, I don't have any evidence of everybody that's missing, but Martin Groves has spent a numerous amount of years researching all that with documentation from reliable people as far as Park Service people, former rangers, state troopers, former police, and sheriff department employees, and just regular people, and all the people that he's talked to are really credible, and some of those as recent as just a few weeks ago, of people being attacked in the park, certain campgrounds being shut down you can't get into, which makes no sense at all. There's one campground there that we can't get into now. That they claim the bridge is in bad shape and you don't need to go in it, but we know for sure there was a young hunter attacked there a couple of years ago, and is blind, ran over him and his father, a dogman type creature, and I believe it broke his arm, and they shut the park down not far after that, and that's by his testimony. And there's a lot of areas like that that's been closed down. Why do you close down an entire campground area? Now, we're talking about an area that has a practically brand new bridge that costs the taxpayers a lot of money. You're talking about camping sites. You're talking about a bait shop, a grocery store type market in it, tennis courts, a playground, bathhouses, and you go in and shut it down because the bridge is a problem. You know, we can believe what we want to believe. It's everybody's right to do so, but there's numerous areas that have been closed like that, and I can see no reason why they're closed, except, you know, they don't want people to get hurt, but they don't want to come out and say that it's actually happening. So I don't personally have any proof of any of this. I just know what we've been told by credible people. You know, there's not a record that you can go look at, and you can't get any of this from the Park Service. It's not a national park anyway. It's run by the National Forestry Service, but you know, I would suggest if you go to land between the lakes, be very careful where you're going to camp, and don't be by yourself. Have numerous people with you, because their chances are a lot better that you won't have anything happen if you have a larger crowd or a larger number of people around
you. Okay.
Yeah, there's a question from Lee. The LBL attack, is it true? Why do you think they attack in the area in all previous years? Why do you think it happens in all them different years?
That was only...
Well, it would be hard for me to speculate exactly, but like I said again, you know, that area has been prone to the dogman type creature. There's numerous citizens who live around that area. Hunters, and not just people who are going in there on the weekend to camp, that have seen these creatures. They know about these creatures, and they're very cautious on what they do. They don't go out at night in a certain area. You know, and our team, when we go in, we have quite a few areas that we go to. We actually go back to the certain area that Martin was attacked up on, real close to his. Actually been in that area at night, and that's very close to where we've seen that creature in 2022. You know, that I can't really tell you why, but I can tell you that they are all around that area. As far as Grand Rivers, the other side of Grand Rivers, I think it's called Port Royal. I think that's the name of it. It's outside of Grant's northern part of the LBL's in Tennessee and Kentucky. And the northern part seems to have more dogman incidents than the southern part. Until recently. Recently, there's been some dog-managed things that's happened in the southern end. You know, certain things that have happened down that way. A lady had one on her back deck or in her backyard, and it killed her 2 dogs back, I think, October.
How far back do you think the sightings go with Bigfoot and dogmen? It's freezed.
It's okay, he'll be back. Interesting guy.
I think it's more in the northern end for the dogman, the southern end for the Bigfoot still, but there are sightings and encounters on both. But the northern end seems to be more popular.
Can you hear us, Daryl?
Hey there,
yes, I got you.
Daryl, do you think that dogmen, well, we're playing a play on words here now, but do you think what people spoke about as the werewolf eons ago, you know, a long time ago, back in folklore and back in history, is simply the dogman is a new term for the same thing?
You know, I've wondered that myself a long time. I've seen quite a few pictures of dogman from eyewitnesses that's been drawn by an artist. And some of those look more like a werewolf than they do.
Yeah.
But then some more like a dogman completely. So I would say it's probably a mixture.
I would agree.
I don't actually think it's the same creature. The very first dogman that I seen was definitely looked like a dog. It looked like a large black German Shepherd.
Okay.
Daryl, do you think they're very territorial? Are they frightened of us?
I don't think they're frightened of us at all. I don't think either creature. I don't think Bigfoot is, and I don't think Dogman is. I think Bigfoot's more elusive. They want to get away from us if they don't feel like we're trustworthy. Dogman, I don't think fear us at all. I think if you're in a dogman's territory and you don't want to leave, it'll either force you to leave or or it will, or you'll leave because you'll feel fear for your life.
Yeah, Steph just got a question here for Daryl. Do Bigfoot follow migratory patterns throughout the year?
I think some of them do. I don't think all of them do, because I do know of families that live in the same area all year round. Now, it's just speculation on how far they go to hunt. I think they go up. I think they can travel up to 100 miles to do their hunting, and they still go back to where they actually live, because they're kind of like people. There are nomadic people, then there are people that are stationary in an area.
Okay. I think we've lost connection again there, don't we?
Yeah.
I don't think they all migrate, no.
Oh, right. I know when you were in your huts, when you were camping there and everything like that, did you ever get stoned there? Bricks thrown at your cabin?
Yes, we did have some rocks thrown at our cabin. Sure did. That was in October this last year. I was with Ryan Moorhead, Martin Nunley, and Martin Groves. Martin actually seen the huge outline of the creature walk behind the window, and they were actually tapping on our front porch. And Martin Nunley and I went out in the night to see what they were doing, and they ran off into the woods. Yes, we had. There was, I believe, 3 rocks to the right side of our cabin that next morning, where they had hit the side of the cabin. Yeah. And I don't think they were trying to harm us. I think they were trying to get our attention. They want you to come out. So we had done an interview that night in front of the campfire, in front of the cabin there, and you can actually hear limbs breaking. These creatures were watching us while we were doing the interview, hid in the woods, and they were snapping limbs and making all kinds of noise.
Do you use a thermal enhancer then? Can you see them using them?
I don't personally have one of those. Barton Nunley has one of those, and one of my old research partners down in Cheatham County, Billy Howell, has one. But no, I don't have one personally.
So I guess what we're saying there, Daryl, is are they throwing out a heat signature like a normal flesh and blood mammal would?
Yes, they do. They do. Yeah. Matter of fact, Billy's is kind of an orange, and Barton's looks. I think Barton said his looked more like a gray color in his. I haven't seen it. He had just recently got it.
Okay.
Very interesting subject, We could go on for hours.
That stuff is great to use if you've got it. I'm really serious about getting. Bigfoot doesn't like guns, and they don't like cameras. They don't like any kind of weapon or a camera. And you got to be very lucky to really get a good shot of them, or have their permission. So it's hard to get permission from them. But if you're around one long enough, sometimes they'll let you try to take a picture.
Well, what Bob said earlier, Daryl, about are they fearful of us, as in humans? Surely they recognise what a gun is.
Oh, sure. I no doubt about that, because I believe their family over the centuries have been killed by people with weapons. That's why I don't ever tell anybody where our spots are, because I'm always afraid the wrong person will hear about it and go in there and try to kill them. The ones I had on the river, they disappeared. I have no doubt that something happened to them, and I never told but one person where they were at, but I think the wrong people went in when they started to do construction in that area, and they probably seen them or heard them, and probably called authorities and scared of them, and probably did something that I wish they hadn't done to them.
Yeah. If you're interviewing people about Bigfoot, can you tell them if they're telling the truth?
I'm sorry, I missed the front part of your question. Go ahead. Can you say that again, please?
When you're interviewing somebody who's seen a Bigfoot, can you tell if they're lying or not?
I haven't. I used to interview a lot of people back when I was really into this, going out all the time. There was probably 10 of us, and we would get so many calls and messages. to go out to their area, people were scared. They had some kind of creature at their house, and at that time, most all of them turned out to be Bigfoot. I don't ever remember it being a dog man. If it did, we didn't know it. But very few people have I ever talked to about them that said they had one or they had seen one that I thought was lying. I mean, I'm sure there are those type people out there, but the ones that we investigated at that time, they were all pretty credible people. They had something going on at their house. They just didn't realize what it was. Some of them had actually seen these creatures and called them Bigfoot. But I don't recall ever talking to anyone that lied to me. And I'm not saying there's not some out there that probably wouldn't do that.
I know Land Between the Lakes. Is there any other special places you go? What's very interesting to research?
Well, we got certain areas that we go to. We probably got probably a good, what we call hot spots, 5 or 6 of those. And we probably got maybe 12 spots that we research or go stake out or walk out, or we're out. Mostly we'll go out in the daytime and check the area, then we'll go back at night and try to get in the area if we know they're in there. And yeah, we've got areas that's completely what we call a hot spot. You can go in there, they're there. They're definitely there.
So Daryl, do you find then that certain members of your team get more of a result as a group? If you take a certain person in, you're likely to get a reaction. Do they favour certain people?
No doubt, 100%. Martin Groves has the best chance of a dog man by far. There's some reason attached to him. 100%. Stronger than all of us. I'd probably say I'm the best with Bigfoot by far. Ron is very good with Bigfoot. But Martin is by far, he and I have been researching so long together. And, you know, he knows I can feel Bigfoot and I know he can feel Dogman. And it really gives us a special bond to each other because we have each other's back and we trust each other, because I don't always feel them, but it's very rare when I don't. And he does the same thing with Dogman. Ron has the ability to kind of fit in with both of them. He has a very special type mentality and aurora about him. Martin is not as likely to see as many things as we do, because 10 or 12 years ago, he rebuked them. He actually rebuked them, the same thing I did, but I did it differently on my farm in 2020. Scott Carpenter told me how to get rid of them because I thought they were going to kill me. But rebuking them and how you do rebuking makes a difference whether you will see them again or not. And Barton did that. Just in the last couple of years, Barton has recounted his rebuking and asked for a different outcome. And just in the last year, it seems like it's starting to pan out for him a little better. He's seen a few more things. But for the longest time, we would go in there, and Barton, he didn't have any luck, but we did. Me and Martin would always see or see something.
Is that because Barton wanted to harm him?
True. I believe that 100%. 100% do believe that. When you go into the woods and you're carrying a big sword and you're carrying a knife and you want to cut their head off, you know, it's pretty much true. We don't go in there to harm them. We go in there to learn about them. So, you know, I'm not going to say that you don't need to be armed when you go in there, but if you're in the LBL, you're not supposed to carry a weapon unless it's hunting season. So we have to be brave enough to go in there with what we've got, which is us. So, you know, we try to learn about these creatures, and if it gets too scary or we fear for our lives, we get out of there. We go. We leave.
That's a good question.
Yeah, it is a good question.
I suggest anybody do that. The thing about these creatures that people don't understand is how fast they are. I can't even explain to you how fast these creatures are, because you wouldn't believe me if I told you. I've never seen anything. They're so fast. And I'm talking about Bigfoot and Dogman. They're just like a blur. They're so fast, how fast they can move. So I don't believe anybody would have time to kill one with a sword anyway. I'm not even sure you could kill one with a gun, but I'm not sure all of them can be killed. But I mean, I've never fired upon one, so I don't know that answer. But I'm not looking to do that unless it's a challenge of, you know, saving one of my friends from death. But we try to go in there with the right attitude, the right reason, not go in there to harm the creature, just learn from the creature.
A good question from here is, from my experience, they do have higher level of consciousness, higher frequency, and etc., have more encounters.
I think yes on that. I would say yes. I think there are people that do that. I do believe that. I'm not the only one in the I'm not the only person. Don't claim to be that has had the encounters and experiences that I've had. I know other people that seem to pick up and have that ability. Correct.
Thank you.
I forgot what Lee's question was now.
I'll just give it a second, then you'll find it.
I don't think we can go back down, unfortunately. I'll get Lee to put it back in again.
What's most dangerous or fearful that you've felt then in there researching and exploring these remote areas then, Daryl?
Probably the scariest I've been. Well, the scariest I've ever been in my life was my first Bigfoot encounter in '92 when my grandfather's farm. But since then, I've learned so much about that it's not as fearful as it once was for me, because that creature could have killed me if it wanted to. It didn't. It wanted to run me out of there. My second encounter with Martin Groves was pretty fearful. That whatever that thing was, a dog type creature that was transparent, that was pretty frightening, because I didn't really understand if we could have killed this thing or not. We had weapons in our truck, and of course we didn't fire upon it because it didn't attack us. But my most fearful moment, I would have to say, was March of 2022. When we were in a certain area of LBL, an area that's off of a area there that we frequent pretty often, that's had a lot of encounters there. People wouldn't even go there. Nobody had ever stayed at this site that I'm aware of. We were told that by 3 individuals who knew the area very well, and they took us in there to that spot, and we stayed there the whole night. Started off with a lot of action, a small Bigfoot looking over a tree at us, belly crawling, looking at us before dark. Then a large Bigfoot to the left, top of the hill, looking at us around the tree. And then about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, the dog man started coming. And we could hear them howling all through the hills and coming from different directions, louder howls. And behind us was an area that was a shallow bay at the end of the lake, where it was the fall pool, the winter pool, which the water's lower. We could hear a dog man or something running through the shallows coming across behind us. And that was probably the most fearful that I've been in a long time, because they were surrounding us. And Martin Groves had been sick 3 times that evening. He got zapped when we were cooking dinner on a fire there right after the small Bigfoot had belly crawled, probably 100 feet from us, looking at us. He'd been zapped, and he was sick in his stomach. And I'd taken him down the ways, just a little ways, to a public restroom in the park, way out in the middle of nowhere, but it was a public restroom that was lit up. I'd taken him there twice because he was so sick in his stomach, he thought he was going to throw up in his truck. So we had come back, and we had Barton had stayed next to the fire while we went down the end of this area. And we got back, and I was sitting next to the fire, and he was, and we could hear these creatures coming. And I looked at him. I said, "Are you ready? Because they're coming in." And he looked at me and said, "I'm as ready as I'll ever be." And Martin was in his, backed up into this spot, backed into these trees in the woods, and his Suburban, and his seat was laid back, and he was laying back in it. He was feeling sick in his stomach, but he was getting better. And he could hear them. And he says, "Man, this is getting close." And I said, "Well, this is what we came for. Let's see them. Let's let it happen." And it got pretty fearful, and I have no service in the LBL. When I'm talking about with my cell phone, I can't call out, I can't get a call. And then I think it was 2:10 in the morning. Now my phone hadn't worked in 3 days that we had been in there. Nobody can get service but Barton occasionally on top of Hill. But my phone starts ringing at 2:10 in the morning, and I'm looking at it, and I said, "How in the world is my phone ringing?" And there was a great friend of mine who has special abilities, intuitive abilities, and she had called me, and she said, "You need to get out of there. Where are you?" It's Beth Collinsworth. She's in my group, and she is absolutely fantastic on picking up things. I don't know what kind of ability or how she has this ability, but she has it. I said, "Beth, my phone don't work. How you calling me?" And she goes, "I don't know, but you need to get out of there. All three of you need to get out of there." I said, "Well, do you know where we're at?" And she goes, "No, but I feel like you're probably in the LBL." And she lives 200 miles.
I'm going to go in a minute, mate.
It's all right. It's all right.
So do you want me to take this back?
Yeah, well, no, leave it there. I'll sort it out. Yeah, beauty of it, because I can go as long as I want now.
Yeah, that's good.
Whenever, when there's good guests on.
Interesting guy, isn't he?
Oh, yeah.
Great bunch of people in chat. So it's all good.
Yeah, sound.
Will Riders. On the money, this fella or woman. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
they all are.
They are, yeah. He'll be back in a minute. Oh, I've got David Oates coming on next Wednesday talking about reverse speech again.
Ah, superb.
He's a nice bloke, he is. I think he's from Australia.
Oh, yeah. So if people in chat can hear me and Bob now, I don't know, give us a yes, because I think Daryl is an absolutely brilliant guest, isn't he? Absolutely.
Oh, spot on.
I feel like that was one of your intense ones. You were really giving lots of information.
Are you there?
Yeah, he's playing in background. I think.
Yeah.
Probably Daryl doesn't realise his audio's on.
Sorry about that. I got you back.
Great stuff. Great stuff, mate. That's fine.
Well, what I was trying to finish telling you was Beth Collinsworth had called me.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere, my phone rings, and she says, "Y'all need to get out of there. You've got dog men all around you, and you have a feral man." And I look at Martin. They go, "How in the world is anybody calling us?" And she goes, "I'm telling you, I feel it. You have dog men all around you, and there's a feral man." And I said, "I don't know anything about a feral man, but we hear the dog man." She goes, "Well, y'all need to get out of there." So Martin Groves gets out of his truck. He walks to the right into the woods by himself, and I'm yelling at him, "Martin, don't go in there by yourself." And he starts chanting real loud, a spiritual chant and Christian spiritual chant. And after he got through with that, he came back out, and it got as quiet as a mouse, and we didn't have anything else happen to us the rest of the evening.
Brilliant. I'm thrilled with this. I've just got to go down. My grandson's here. Daryl, take care, mate. Bob, great show. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Thank everyone for watching us from the UK. Thank you for having me on.
Bob ain't done yet. I'm going, Daryl. See you later, mate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's just going.
Good to see you, buddy.
Yeah, there's another question from Lee. Do you think they can read your mind and judge your movements?
I think they can read your mind, yes. I don't know about the movements, but I know Bigfoot can read your abilities in your mind. They know your thought. They know your thought train. I'll say that.
Yeah, and I know many a time before you see a Bigfoot, you can smell them.
Well, I've kind of lost my smell since I had COVID in 2021, but beforehand, I've been around many Bigfoot, and I have smelled some of them, but a lot of them don't smell at all.
They don't?
No, I've been around some that I didn't smell at all.
Well, that's brilliant. Because you get other people say, "Oh, I can smell that strong smell."
I have smelt something like that. Yes, it smelled like a dead body, really. But I have smelt that type. But I have been around some you didn't smell them at all. So I don't know how that works. But I tend to believe it's some type of gland they have. That if they're frightened or nervous, they kind of let some kind of feral gland work that produces a terrible smell that wants to make you keep them away. That's just a personal belief of mine. Some people think they just, have so much hair on them they can't stay clean. So, and they sweat and produce a bad odor. It could be that or both.
Yeah, there's a question for Murphy here. Subconscious or instinctual interpretation of subtle physical or facial queries. Animals don't know your past, but they can see how you carry yourself.
Yeah, I believe that. I don't think that's a problem. I think these creatures are so smart. They're actually smarter than a lot of people, a lot of regular humans like us. They are ancient human in my belief. I don't think they're any type of ape or anything like that. Uh, they're very intelligent. They're. You got to think these creatures have lived in the forest, the woods, wherever they've lived all these years. They've learned and adapted an ability for survival. On top of the fact of having to live in fear of some type of human coming in and killing them and their family. So they're naturally going to be more alert and more sensitive to sounds, noises, and their vision is incredible. I know they can hear and see you when you get out of your vehicle and in the area before you go into the woods. They already know you're there. They've got scouts. They have them out watching. They have what I call the watchers. So they're so intelligent. They're way ahead of you before you make your first move.
One from Izzo here. Bob and Darrow, do you think they cross over from dimension to dimension like a dogman?
You mean through another dimension, like a portal, that type thing?
Yeah.
It would only be a thought because I don't know the answer to that, but I think it's possible. Yes, I think that's definitely a possibility. I do believe in portals. I've never been in one. I've seen three, but I don't care to go into one. I don't know if you come out or not, but I believe that's what happens to a lot of these missing people in the national parks. So, I'm referring to Dave Pilatus, missing 411 Can-Am. I don't think all these people are eaten by dog men or creatures. I think a lot of them are possibly taken into a portal or walk into one. Probably a combination of all of it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I think as well. Yeah, it's been an interesting show. Very fascinating subject. Oh, just one from Murphy here. Can you describe the portals they've seen?
The ones that I've seen was one Scott Carpenter showed me. I did not see it live. It was actual video that he sent me of one. And I think that actual portal is available on some of his previous work. Scott was a very close friend of mine. He passed away last August of a brain aneurysm at a very young age. I think Scott was 55. Very great researcher. The world lost a great one when they lost him. But he had a really good one. I know it's still available on some of his previous channels. His son is still allowing a lot of that work to be seen. So, and then I also seen one in Cumberland County, Tennessee, next to a waterfall. It looked like a round circle. It was very blurry, except you could see different colors inside of it. It's kind of hard to explain, but it was definitely different than anything I was looking at in the area. It formed and then it was gone. Maybe there 5 minutes or so. And then Beth Collinsworth, the lady I just mentioned who called us in the LBL, her and Jennifer Appleton had a really good picture of one during a rainstorm that was really, really incredible. Those are the three that I've seen. One in real life and two from friends who had footage of it. Did I lose you?
I think we're back again.
All right, here we go.
Yeah. I got another question from Izzo. I saw a portal in Russell Peak in Arizona. I touched it. It felt like plastic food wrapping, like cellophane. Also, 3 mysterious 1-1 cases happened there.
Wow. Now, going back to what you mentioned earlier, I had completely forgot about it till you mentioned the SRAM wrap. I did see a creature in 2000 and can't remember if that was 15 or 16 that looked like a saran wrap type creature in between 2 trees, and it went away very quickly when it seen my gun. The portal that had a saran wrap feeling, I never heard that, but I don't doubt that that's not possible. I don't know. I really don't know what a portal is. It definitely comes, I believe, from a different dimension.
Right, yeah. Lee's just asking another question. Darryl, does Bigfoot and Dogman seem to float when they are walking, or would you say they walk normal?
The Bigfoot that I've seen walk normal. The dog man that we seen in 22 and the LBL that's on the recent documentary that's out from Small Town Monsters, it glided behind the truck like it glided across the road. It did not walk. It just like glided right across the road like it was just on some type of air. I don't know how to explain it. But that's the only time I've seen one of those do that. The Bigfoot that I've seen were definitely walking. I did see a Bigfoot go behind a large tree, huge tree, and it never came out. It never came out anywhere. So I don't know where it went. Dr. Matthew Johnson says they live in trees, inside the trees. I don't know. I don't disagree with anything the man said. He's pretty intelligent. But I don't know where it went. But I've never seen anything but that one occurrence when it glided.
Right, thank you for that. I think there's just one. I'll just see if there's another question. It's gone. Right, I think. Right, thank you, Darryl. Thank you for coming on the show.
Hey, glad to be here. Thank you for having me. I didn't know you was going to have Paul come down and visit with you. That was pretty cool. I like Paul a whole lot. He's got great stuff.
I live in one of his flats. He
Okay,
lives in the bottom flat, and I live in the top flat.
Well, that's really cool.
That's why we go out investigating together.
That's great. I mean, Paul's got a good show, and I know his is well known over there, and I'm glad you got yours going, and I'm honored to be here. So thanks for having me on.
Hey, thank you. Everybody in the chat room. Oh, everybody in the chat room said, what a brilliant guest he is. Get him back on again.
I'll be more than happy to come on again with you guys. But thanks everybody for watching, and I appreciate it. And when you get this downloaded, please let me know, and I'll put it on our channel and our group so everybody can watch.
I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you. And then you can put it away there. Well, thank you again. Thank you to my fantastic guest, Darryl. What a great guest he is. My guest next Wednesday, the 17th, is David Oakes. We're going to talk about reverse speaking. It's a very great subject. He listens to things, plays it backwards, and things come out of it. He's from Australia. I've had him on my show before about 3 years ago. We did a thing about Diane, about most things where people could get murdered. And when you reverse speak, it all comes out and says, yes, she was murdered. Very interesting subject. And thank you again. You take care and have a lovely day.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate it. Everybody catch our channel, Bigfoot Believers and Other Creatures. And
yes,
follow my close friends, Ron Moorhead, Martin Nunley, and Martin Groves. Thank you so much for letting me be on.
Hey, great show. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, buddy.
Take care. Thank you again. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Wow, it was a long one. Fun though. Good people. He's a good guy. I didn't know that he was good friend.
And stream.